Hey, y'all, if there is one thing I cannot stand, it is tossing and turning at night because I'm hot and I'm uncomfortable. But all that ended when I was introduced to Cozy Earth. Crafted from 100% bamboo, these sheets are not only incredibly soft, but also they're breathable, they're moisture wicking, and they keep me cool and comfortable all night long. I literally sink into the bed and feel like I am sleeping on a cloud. They have everything from sheet sets to complete bedding bundles to comforters, everything you're going to need to get a night's sleep. And the brand has been featured on Good Morning America, In Style, Better Homes and Gardens. And guess what? They don't stop with bedding either. They got pajamas for both men and women. And I am telling you, they are the most comfortable pajama sets I have ever worn. They have bath towels, robes, tops, hoodies. If you wear it, sleep on it, or dry off with it, they got it. With free shipping on orders over $50, a 100-night sleep trial, and a 10-year warranty, Cozy Earth will bring you what it brought me: a good night's sleep and a whole lot of comfort. Exposed Podcast has partnered with Cozy Earth to offer my listeners 41% off by using the code EXPOSED at checkout. That's 41% off by going to CozyEarth.com and using the code EXPOSED at checkout. Sleep better, live better, choose Cozy Earth. Sweet dreams await.
This is the story of the one. As a maintenance supervisor at a manufacturing facility, he knows keeping the line up and running is a top priority. That's why he chooses Grainger. Because when a drive belt gets damaged, Grainger makes it easy to find the exact specs for the replacement product he needs. And next day delivery helps ensure he'll have everything in place and running like clockwork. Call 1-800-GRAINGER, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Trying to lose weight? It's time to try Hers. At forhers.com/4u, you can access affordable, doctor-trusted weight loss treatments tailored just for you. These include oral medication kits or compounded GLP-1 injections. Through Hers, pricing for oral medication kits start at just $69 a month for a 10-month plan when paid in full upfront. No hidden fees, no membership fees. You shouldn't have to go out of your way to feel like yourself. Hers brings expert care straight to you with 100% online access to personalized treatment plans that put your goals first. Reach your weight loss goals with help through Hers. Get started at forhers.com/4u to access affordable, doctor-trusted weight loss plans. That's forhers.com/4u, forhers.com/4u. Paid for by Hims and Hers Health. Weight loss by Hers is not available everywhere. Compounded products are not FDA approved or verified for safety, effectiveness, or quality. Prescription required. Restrictions at forhers.com apply.
Hey everyone, and welcome back to Exposed, Scandalous Files of the Elite. I'm your host, Jim Chapman, and today I am bringing you another Bad Teacher Series episode. And we're going to go first to Norwalk, Connecticut, and the Nathan Hale Middle School. And for this one, I'm going to tell you about 47-year-old guidance counselor by the name of Luisa Melchionne. Nice little Italian name there, so I'm likely going to refer to her as Louisa from here on out. Now let's get into it. On April 24th of 2024, this is a current case, y'all, the Norwalk PD, they receive a phone call from a male subject, and he states that he had information about a public school teacher having inappropriate relationships with a student. Now, during the phone call, the male was somewhat evasive, and when the original officer wanted the male subject to wait while he transferred the call to what is known as the Special Victims Unit, the subject didn't wait. The subject hangs up. So, of course, they have caller ID. The Special Victims Unit, they call back that number, and a male who would only provide his first name, he said his first name was Mike, he answered the phone. Mike told police that a friend who he identified as Louisa let him borrow a cell phone because he had damaged his cell phone, dropped it or something, and he said Luisa had told him prior to letting him use that cell phone, hey, it's been wiped. And that was his words. Now, when he went to use it, he noticed there were messages still on that phone. Specifically, messages between Luisa and a student that were sexual in nature. So at this point, the officer speaking to him says, okay, hold on. We need to discuss this more in person. And this guy was like totally against that. He told the officer, hey, I'll just call you back. And he hangs up. And a few days later, the officer goes into work and there's a voicemail left for him. And it's from Mike. And in that voicemail, he stated he wanted to get the officer's email because he was going to send him some screenshots from that phone. So the officer sends him the email, and shortly after that, he does receive 3 emails, and they contain 17 different screenshots. So let's get into what these screenshots consisted of. Now, 13 of those screenshots were text conversations. One contained a screenshot of a topless female. Another contained a female on her knees wearing a thong, and it was showing the back of her head. So imagine that screenshot being taken from like above, and all you can see is the back of someone's head. In her case, she had long brown hair, so you can see that, and then you could see a thong kind of underneath there. And one was a screenshot that showed money transactions, and another was a screenshot of a real estate bill. And there were a few pictures as well of a child who was identified as a male student. Now, detectives learned that said male student had recently moved to another school, so he wasn't at Luisa's school at the time this was reported. So on April 30th of 2024, an investigator heads to Nathan Hale Middle School, where this teacher worked. And this investigator meets with the SRO of that school first, and he shows the SRO, the student resource officer, that's a police officer that works at high schools and middle schools, things of that nature, elementary schools. He shows that SRO one of the screenshots of the suspect, and he says, do you know this person as a teacher? And that SRO says, oh yeah, that's Luisa Melchionne. And the picture that detective actually showed the SRO was Luisa taking a selfie in a mirror, and her breasts were exposed and her face is clearly seen in that picture. There's no denying it's her. That screenshot also clearly showed a phone number at the top of the screen, which belonged to the male student that she had sent that picture to. Detectives would learn later on. So at this point, a senior detective gets called in who kind of specializes in these types of cases. And he reviews those 17 screenshots. He notes a text message with the words "good morning" on it and a picture of the now identified teacher, Luisa, topless in the mirror. Her face was partially covered with the phone, but you can clearly tell it's her. So she's taking this selfie and she's got the phone trying to block her face, but you can tell who it is. The student replied to that text by saying, quote, "Damn, you barely got any." I guess talking about her breasts. And the teacher replies, quote, "You're so sweet." Then she says, "Wait till I see your," and she inserts an eggplant emoji, which is kind of slang for penis. And the student then replies, "I am only," and it's redacted, his age for whatever reason. It's the first time I've seen an age redacted, but it's redacted out. We now know that this kid was 13 at the time and she was 47. So he continued in that message to say, "Don't expect it to be a BBC," which is slang for big black cock. She responds to that with, "Then I would rub your dick on me." And she continues with, "You realize I'm going to have to finger myself now. I'm so wet." 47-year-old teacher, 13-year-old student, y'all. Now, another screenshot provided shows a picture of an Apple Pay application, and there's 5 payments that were sent to this student's nickname. One for $15, one for $50, 2 for $20 and 1 for $25. And another screenshot showed a tax bill. And this is important because it was a bill to a home Luisa owned with her husband and also where she lived. And this was on this student's phone. That shows a lot of proof right there outside of just the pictures. So with all this evidence, the detective decides it's time to interview this kid. He meets with the student and his father. And during that interview, the student admits to having conversations with the teacher that were sexual in nature. And when he was asked about the Apple payments, the student said they were for food and Uber rides. He went on to say that he stopped speaking with Luisa when he transferred schools, on a regular basis anyway, but that he would still text back and forth with her occasionally. As recently as the week prior to this officer speaking with him, the officer asked if he ever received nudes from her, and he responded yes. And at this point, the detective knew a more in-depth interview would need to take place, and he schedules that with the father. And in the meantime, he speaks with that SRO again at the school. And the SRO said that she had witnessed the teacher pull students into her office with the door shut, which she's a guidance counselor. So I could kind of see that not necessarily raising a red flag. I mean, sometimes with guidance counselors, students have very personal, private conversations. And so that didn't shock me that much, but the SRO thought it was important and brought it up. Next, the mother, father, and the student, they meet with the detective and a child advocacy agent at the station. And the student is interviewed by the child advocacy agent. And the child states that the relationship began in the spring of his 7th grade year. He said that by the end of that school year, the teacher continued to stay in contact with him by the way of text, and that the conversation became more sexual in nature. He stated he received pictures of the teacher's breast and butt, and he went on to say that the teacher asked for pictures of him and said at first he was uncomfortable with this, but eventually he sent the teacher a picture of his penis. He said that after he sent it, Luisa sent him a voice message saying, quote, "Holy shit, your dick is bigger than my husband's," unquote. The student said when he returned to school for the fall, this would be his 8th grade year, he felt awkward at first, but he continued to text and talk with Luisa, as well as meeting her at her office. He stated that she would touch him on his penis, both under and over his clothing in that office. He said that at times she would want him to, quote, rub his penis against her butt, and that she would tell this 8th grader, y'all, quote, "fuck me over my desk," unquote. He said it felt weird to him because he could not believe it was happening. He also stated she would give him lap dances in her office and that she performed oral sex on him on numerous occasions. He said sometimes she would do this while he was sitting in a chair, and other times he would be standing and she would be on her knees. The student also confirmed that during these occasions, the door would be closed and the blinds drawn for obvious reasons. He said that the teacher would send him money, including $100 for Christmas, which, y'all, this happens a lot, especially with female sex offenders. And it's a big time grooming technique.
Jim, did you see what happened in Texas today?
Wait, before you tell me that, let me tell you what happened in New York.
It cannot be as crazy as the case I told you about yesterday in Louisiana.
You know what? We should do a podcast about it.
And with that, we did. Crime Wire Weekly covers the crime news headlines that have dominated the week.
We cover trending crimes from all over the country and even sprinkle in a few globally.
Crime Wire Weekly is available now wherever you listen to your podcasts.
Simply by searching Crime Wire Weekly or clicking the link in the description of this podcast. He said after he moved schools, the relationship ended, but he would continue to get text and phone calls from Luisa. He said she would call from her office phone, and she stated that she was afraid to use her cell phone because she was worried her husband may find the pictures that she sent and the conversation text about the relationship. So police have all this information. They have all these interviews. And on July 11th of 2024, police arrest Luisa, and she's charged with sexual assault and risk of injury to a child. Now, her defense attorney, he said what you would imagine a defense attorney would say, which is the charges being brought against this devoted mother with over 20 years in her profession are total bullshit. Her bond is set. She does bond out, and she was placed on house arrest. She was also prohibited of any contact with minors outside of her 3 kids. And the last bit of information that I could find on this, which to me is not surprising, is that there is a divorce pending between this bad teacher and her husband. So apparently he was as shocked as everyone else that this was going on. As I said, this is a recent case, so I'm going to update you on this one when it finally goes to the courts. So we're going to move to another bad teacher, and I'm going to bring you to Milford, Connecticut, and I'm going to tell you about Jennifer Dunn, who was 41 years old, and this is in July of 2009 when she was charged with allegations of an inappropriate relationship with a 17-year-old male student while she was a teacher's aide at Platt Technical School in Connecticut. So here's how that went down.
We all know those GLP-1 injections work wonders, but that price tag almost gave me a heart attack when my insurance denied coverage. I was staring at a choice between paying my mortgage or paying for weight loss. Talk about a rock and a hard place. Then I found Elevate Health compounded semaglutide at just $58 with payment plans that don't require a second mortgage. Same medication, same results, but a price that real folks can actually afford. Visit joinelevate.com today. That's JOINELEVATE.com. Your wallet will be as happy as your waistline.
This medication is not FDA approved.
The school principal calls police, and he states that he had been recently made aware by the assistant principal that a rumor was swirling around the school involving Dunn and a student who was a senior at that school during this time. He told the investigator that he questioned some other staff members as well as some other students regarding what this rumor was all about, etc., and that he learned of Dunn's indiscretions, if you will. He said that he called this 17-year-old male student into the office, and that student denied any involvement with Dunn. He then asked the student if he had ever communicated with Dunn via telephone or text. And again, the student denied this, which what the student did not know was that the principal had already interviewed Dunn and that she admitted to having both called and texted the student. So the principal knew the student was lying. Now, these initial interviews took place on March 25th of 2009. The principal told detectives he wanted to let the kid go home and kind of think about it, see if he could get some honesty out of him the next day. So on March 26th of 2009, he calls this student back into the office and he says, "Hey, I know you're lying. Dunn has already come in here and she's already told me that she's talked to you on the phone and that y'all have exchanged text." And it was at this point the student admits to the communication. And the principal told the detective that he then kind of pressed the student a little bit further as to the nature of these calls and texts. And the student said that Dunn and himself had arranged to get a room at a Days Inn in New Haven, Connecticut, where the student met Dunn and they had sex. So after hearing that, the principal, he dismisses the student back to class and he calls Miss Dunn back into the office. And he tells her this situation has become very serious and an investigation would have to start and the police would have to be called, because what she was telling him was, yeah, I've talked to him on the phone a few times and we texted a few times, but it was all school related, right? He said at this point, Dunn, she starts freaking out and she expresses some concern for her kids. And then she says what had happened was the biggest mistake of her life. The principal says, hold up. Don't tell me anything else. You're officially placed on administrative leave pending an investigation. Other detectives, they conduct a series of interviews. The student tells detectives that, among other things, he knew Miss Dunn to be a library assistant who worked in the lunchroom as well at that high school. He said Miss Dunn was very friendly, and most of her students called her by a nickname, which was Mama Dunn. And he said he would talk to Miss Dunn in the lunchroom and around school, and that one day Miss Dunn asked him for his cell number. And in return, she gave him her cell number. He said this was around Christmas in December of 2008. He said he was kind of surprised because this was the first time he had ever given his phone number to a teacher. So they exchanged numbers. And one day she texted him, and it was a random text. And in that random text, she said, quote, "Are you interested in me?" He said then Dunn starts texting him a lot, which he defined a lot as 3+ times a day. He said she would text at all hours of the day and the night. Now, the student claimed he never responded to that, quote, "Are you interested in me?" text. And that the next random text he got said, quote, "Would you ever do stuff with me?" unquote. He said he didn't reply to that either. And he assumed Miss Dunn just wanted to hang out when she was talking about do stuff with me. Of course, hindsight's 2020. And we both know now she meant have sex with me. So he said the next day he gets a text, and that text read, quote, "Do you want to get a room?" unquote. And keep in mind, peeps, this is a 41-year-old woman here. Now, he did respond back to this text. At this time, he knew exactly what she meant when she said, "Do you want to get a room?" And he responds with one word, which was yes. He said the next text he got from Dunn read, quote, "Where do you want to go?" And he replied, "The Days Inn in New Haven." He then told detectives that in January of 2009, he met Miss Dunn twice at that Days Inn. And he said on both occasions, Dunn would text him the key code to her car. So he would pull up, she'd text him that key code. He would go inside of the car, and there would be a room key waiting for him sitting on the console. He could not remember the code to tell detectives for her car, but he stated it was 5 digits in length, and he knew the first 2 digits were 0 and 6. He said that once he would get the key, he would text Miss Dunn, let her know that he had it, and then she would text him the actual room number. And he said once he entered the room, Miss Dunn would be laying on the bed in blue jeans and a t-shirt. He said they would make small talk for 10 to 20 minutes, and that on the first occasion, Dunn removed her clothes and he removed his clothes. They got completely nude, and she performed oral sex on him to completion. He said the second time they met was approximately 2 weeks after the first time. He said at this second meeting, they had both oral sex and they had intercourse. And he described her vehicle to a T, which police determined later was registered to her husband. Now, he also told detectives about 2 weeks after that second meeting, he was hanging out with friends. They were former students at the school. And as we've learned with all these bad teachers, and what these bad teachers will never learn, is that students are going to tell their friends when they have sex with you. Well, he's sitting around telling his friends about this, and they had some news for him. Both of these friends claimed they also had sex with Miss Dunn during their senior years, which they graduated the year prior to this particular student. So detectives go and they get sworn statements from both of these friends as well. However, according to those sworn statements, they had already graduated when these sex sessions occurred. So armed with all of this evidence, police arrest Jennifer Dunn, and she's charged with second-degree sexual assault. And she surrenders to authorities. She bonds out on a $10,000 bond, which second-degree sex assault, y'all, in Connecticut is a felony. However, you know how these cases go by now. I've covered enough of these. And this one, no different. Due to the fact that Connecticut's age of consent is 16, this guy was 17, and that the meetings were consensual, and there was no coercion that police could prove, Dunn ends up copping a plea to fourth-degree sex assault, which is a misdemeanor, and she pleads no contest. So in the end, she was sentenced to 2 years in jail, but the entire sentence was suspended. So at the end of the day, after all this, screwing this guy twice, she gets probation. Now, interesting thing to note in this case is that it came out later that even those two former students that I mentioned, she was pretty bold when she would have her sexual escapades with them. She was having sex with them in public settings, such as a ballpark parking lot and parking lots in empty office buildings. So there you have it, Jennifer Dunn. I put your ass on blast. Just unbelievable, these bad teachers. And it's been a little while since I've been able to bring you a couple of those. Some of these, there's just not a lot of information out there on. And it's sad. I think there should be all the information in the world when it's someone that commits shit like this. Jennifer Dunn, I couldn't even find a picture of. That's how much she escaped the fire. Luisa, that's the picture you see in the thumbnail of this podcast, this particular podcast. And once again, an attractive teacher just doing utter stupidity. And in her case, it wasn't a 17-year-old. It was a 13-year-old. What a sick human being she is. Quickly, I want to say thank you so much for listening. Check out the Patreon, commercial-free early releases, bonus episodes, and more. Patreon.com/exposed podcast files. Please go follow Crime Wire Weekly. We drop previews on this particular feed of Crime Wire Weekly, but they're only 25, 30 minutes in length. We have at least an hour for each episode on the Crime Wire Weekly feed, but you got to go follow that particular feed. Just search Crime Wire Weekly wherever you get your podcast. Sean Combs' sentencing is coming up in October. Of course, I covered, must have been like 60 episodes of the Sean Combs Diddy series, and I'll be bringing you everything regarding that sentencing. Probably bring you a couple of episodes on that starting in October. So get ready for that as well. And check out Bloody Angola. That's another podcast I do, where I talk about America's most notorious prison, that is Louisiana State Penitentiary in Angola, and I talk about those who inhabit that prison as well. Bloody Angola, just search Bloody Angola Podcast wherever you get your podcast. I guarantee you, you will enjoy that one. And until next time, for Exposed, Scandalous Files of the Elite, I'm your host, Jim Chapman. Much love.